सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Two developments in two most distant parts of the world are making us focus today sort of counterintuitively on Punjab, because you might ask me, what's the big deal about Punjab right now? What is happening? We know there is a lot happening in Ukraine, the war is happening. We know that there is a lot happening with Aam Aadmi Party, Kejriwal's major statements, etc., Rahul Gandhi's yatra, BJP's moves, ED, CBI, etc., interrogating, catching many people, registering cases against them. So all those are the big stories. So how come we are going to Punjab? So the two big events. There are some other things also happening alongside, but two big events now. One is in India. In Delhi, Captain Amrinder Singh, the former Chief Minister of Punjab, a Congress stalwart and a Sikh stalwart. In a pan-Indian sense, most people do not see him as a Sikh leader. They see him as a leader of national stature, but not as a Sikh leader. And he's a Sikh leader not just because he was born a Sikh, or he is the current ruler of the state of Patiala, the most important Sikh principality, or because he was commissioned in the Sikh regiment. He is a Sikh leader because he's done most of his politics in Punjab and he stayed close to the Sikh mind and the Sikh vote. So remember, he came into politics in 1980 on the call of Rajiv Gandhi, who was his friend from Doon School, and he resigned in 1984 before his tenure in Lok Sabha was over, and he resigned in protest against Operation Blue Star. And after he resigned, he joined Shiromani Akali Dal. He became a minister, contested elections, became a minister in the state, then fell out with Shiromani Akali Dal and formed a faction of Shiromani Akali Dal, or a breakaway group called Shiromani Akali Dal Panthik, and later in 1998 came back to the Congress when it looked like he thought that things were coming back to some kind of normalcy in Punjab and the Sikhs were not so alienated. He also took a strong position on anti-Sikh riots. So he is a Sikh leader of some consequence. You may say he's turned 80, he's a spent force. So you know, in politics, these cycles turn. And BJP also is not unthinking. If there is one thing you don't accuse BJP of, it is of not planning its politics. BJP looks far ahead. So Amrinder Singh joining the BJP is an important event in Punjab. Now that's happened. What's the other thing? The other thing that's happened is that far away, in fact, almost exactly the other side of the globe, in Ontario. Ontario is sort of in Midwestern Canada. It's a large state, the most populous state in Canada, largest not geographically, but the most populous state in Canada. By the way, this is the state that has the Niagara Falls. So in that state, there is a large Sikh population. So this Sikh separatist organization headed by Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, whose picture we've seen often on our TV channels and we've seen his videos. He was very active during the farmers movement. He's been spreading the idea of Sikh separatism, seeking a referendum on what he calls as Khalistan. What he calls as Khalistan, with its capital in Shimla. That's very comfortable, isn't it? Ask the Himachalis. So he's been holding this so-called referendum. So he's held his referendum in other European cities. He's held one in London, Manchester, Birmingham, Slough, all the familiar places in UK where Sikhs live in large numbers. Also in Italy, in Geneva, etc. Now he's held the big one in Canada, in Ontario. Now in Canada, by the way, more than 1 million Sikhs live. Now this happened just this Sunday, just yesterday as I record this. And there was a lot of pressure from the Indian side on the Canadian government to try and stop it. But you know what? The Canadian Prime Minister said he was not going to interfere. His government was not going to interfere in his citizens' mark that line, underline those words. Canadian citizens from expressing their view and opinion peacefully as long as it was within the law. So the reason I said underline those words is that these are Canadian citizens. So you have now Sikhs who become British citizens, Italian citizens, Canadian citizens, etc., demanding a Khalistan with its capital in Shimla. It is very troublesome for India because this is something that's gone on. It comes up, goes down, comes up, goes down. And you know what? History tells us, particularly history of the past 30, 40 years, that whenever it comes up, it usually takes a toll. It usually takes a toll mostly of Sikh lives. It takes a toll of many lives, Sikhs, Hindus, Muslims, all from all faiths, but mostly the lives of fellow Indians. All of these are Indian lives of people of Indian origin overseas, but a majority of them are always Sikhs. So for a long time this was dormant. Now it looks like there is a sputtering of this trouble once again. And you know what? When I googled what's happening in Ontario, this referendum, I was quite surprised, or maybe I should not have been so surprised, when all the entries that Google threw up, and you can see these, all the entries or most of the entries that Google threw up immediately were from Pakistani papers. So there was the News, there was the Nation, there was Express Tribune, there was Geo TV. These are all Pakistani publications. So the greatest curiosity and coverage of what is happening is in the Pakistani media. No, we are terrible people in this subcontinent. If something was happening in, say, Balochistan or some part of Pakistan that was troublesome, you will find most of the coverage in Indian media as well. And that takes me back to something that General Musharraf had said at that famous or infamous breakfast meeting with editors in Agra when he'd come on his supposed or alleged peacemaking trip, which he blew with his big mouth talk, with his boasting at big mouth talk at that breakfast. So he said that, look, we must acknowledge that over the decades, our countries have done terrible things to each other and we should stop doing it going ahead. But it's quite evident now that once again, none of this has changed. When we get a chance, we Indians get a chance, we will do our stuff in Pakistan. Pakistanis think they have a chance right now of once again bringing to life this dormant or near dead subversive element in our Punjab. And they've got an opportunity. Partly this opportunity also came through the farmers movement because there was a big mobilization. Now you can always get into a chicken and egg argument over whether the farmers movement also were triggered by some of this, but those are circular arguments. We can go round and round with them. We have to accept a reality. So the reality is more than a lakh of Sikhs landed up at this voting. This voting took place at a place called Gore Meadows Community Centre in Brampton, Ontario. And in fact, the so-called polling centre where these people, all Canadian citizens came and cast their vote in favour of what they see as an independent sovereign state of Khalistan with Shimla as its capital. This has been named after Harjinder Singh Pada. Harjinder Singh Pada is an acknowledged terrorist as far as India is concerned. He is hailed as a hero by radical separatists, mostly in Canada. So they named this voting center or polling center after him. So that itself is an indication in terms of where they are headed. And Sikhs for Justice, the so-called Sikhs for Justice, the organization that Pannu runs, so they announced that from 26 January next year, that is as the 74th year of India's Republic begins, they will now start similar voting or similar referendums in Indian Punjab as well. Now we know that's not that likely to happen. That's not going to be so easy because in any case, people voting in Canada, Britain, Italy, etc., are not Indian citizens because Indian citizens for voting something like this will have consequences when they come back to India, and everybody wants to come back to India. It's only lately that governments in India have been taking away restrictions or entry bans on those who might have been involved in subversive or separatist activity in the past to do with Punjab. Now nobody wants those bans to be back. So that is the reason most of the quote-unquote voters in this case are are almost entirely foreign citizens. Now, there is a lot of support for this in politics in Canada on local basis. Why? Because everybody has vote bank pressure. So Trudeau wants the Sikh vote. His entire hold on power comes through minority votes, Sikhs, Muslims, other immigrants. And also the local MP, in this case, who's actually conservative, that MP also is hailing this. So there is a quote from, which I find again in Pakistani press, from Dean Allison, who's the MP from Niagara West, conservative MP, remember, not Trudeau's MP, who says, and I quote, amazing turnout, Sikh nation is voting for the right to self-determination, over 50,000, and the lines are still growing. So this is where that support is. What this does is, this builds headlines. In our Punjab, there is this big madness about going to Canada. So pass your IELTS, as they call it, that is the English language examination, and go and do anything in Canada. Go and do anything in Canada, in the course of time, get citizenship, and some of them will then again go ahead and vote like this. So this is something that India is always worried about. And because this is growing, at the other end, at the Indian end, a kind of power vacuum has grown in Sikh politics, in Punjab politics and Sikh politics. Because what's happened there is the traditional parties there, the traditional binary in Punjab politics was Congress on one side and Akalis on the other in the past, with BJP and before that Jan Sangh floating in the middle as non-entities. But then Akalis and the BJP came together. When they came together, a proper binary came into being in Punjab politics. That is Congress on one side, Shiromani Akali Dal, BJP on the other. What that did in the process was that it brought Hindus and Sikhs together in that SAD BJP alliance. So there was a time when Senior Badal's government had just come into power in late 90s in Punjab, and some Bhindranwale kind of activism happened around the Golden Temple. And I used to be the editor of Indian Express, and we wrote some really angry editorials saying that this is very troublesome. Why is this happening? Under a nationalist government of Shiromani Akali Dal and the BJP, and if anything, BJP should lean on the Akali Dal to squash it. I was summoned to meet Mr. Vajpayee, who also had late Madan Lal Khurana sitting with him, and some other leaders. And I was sort of chided by Mr. Vajpayee, who said, why the hell are you so angry? Why are you complaining so much about it? Why are you provoking this kind of reaction that something terrible is happening in Punjab? So I said, something terrible is happening in Punjab, and Akalis are your partners. You can tell them, you can lean on them to stop it. So he said, look, I cannot push them, I should not push them beyond a point in the national interest. Because you know what? What was the dispute in Punjab? The dispute in Punjab was that the Sikhs and the Hindus had acquired distrust between themselves. So what is the preeminent Sikh party? It's the Shiromani Akali Dal. What is the preeminent Hindu party? It's the BJP. If they come together, then in effect, Hindus and the Sikhs have come together. Now what's happened under Modi government is that the excuse became the farm bills, but we knew that tension was developing between the BJP and the Akali Dal for quite some time. In fact, ever since the BJP came back with a majority, it has got rid of or discarded most of its allies as if they were kind of excess weight. You know what happens when a balloon goes up? As it goes higher and higher, it keeps dropping some weight. It carries some sandbags which it keeps dropping, so the balloon can keep going higher. That's what the BJP has done with its partners. One of those partners discarded was the Shiromani Akali Dal. That took away that very vital alliance in the national interest of a Sikh party and a Hindu party. They were together and now they split. As they split, the vote split. And the Sikh vote split, Akali Dal became very weak for many reasons, but also because now they did not have the hedge of the Hindu vote from the BJP. They became complete losers in the elections, and as we saw in the last assembly elections, they did very, very, very poorly. So if we look at the latest assembly elections in Punjab, 2022, that tells us the story of this vacuum. And this vacuum is that Aam Aadmi Party got now 42% of the vote, Congress got 22% of the vote, Shiromani Akali Dal was down to 18.38% of the vote, and BJP got 6.6% of the vote. So Shiromani Akali Dal, if we say got bulk, most of its voters were Sikh voters. You can see that Sikh vote, the rest of the Sikh vote got divided. A bulk of it went to Aam Aadmi Party. The rest went to Congress Party. So there was no real magnet for the Sikh vote. So Sikh politics lost its center of gravity in Punjab. So that has now become a problem for India. And that is where there is a vacuum in Punjab. Once there is a vacuum in Punjab politics, there is a party in power with a humongous majority. So it isn't that kind of a vacuum. But the vacuum is in terms of the absence of a preeminent Sikh party or a Sikh leader. Now you like it or not, you cannot discard that as one of the important factors of stability in a state as sensitive as that. On the other hand, BJP is also worried that Punjab is one state in the north where they have no foothold. Their foothold is so poor that even when they had an alliance with the Akali Dal, even then their key candidates lost the Amritsar seat. Arun Jaitley in 2014 and Hardeep Puri in 2019. Both lost to the Congress, but remember that first defeat, Arun Jaitley lost by more than a lakh of votes, I think 110,000 votes in Amritsar in 2014. That defeat was to Amrinder Singh. Now, Amrinder Singh, he may have not got any seats in the last assembly election, but at that point, the political cycle for him was at the lowest point. What he brings to the table now for the BJP is a Sikh face, is a preeminent Sikh face. So already he's become, as he joins in, he's the most preeminent Sikh face in the BJP. He's Jat Sikh, he's been Chief Minister of Punjab twice, he's a 5-term MLA, he's been an MP after defeating Arun Jaitley in the face of a massive Modi wave which swept all of North India. And this has happened at a time when you see this new threat emerging, the subversive elements making a comeback. So all of that sounds cluttered. Of course it's very cluttered. That's why we are talking about it. Sounds concerning. Indeed it's concerning, because you know what happens? Sometimes when you're focused on things here and there, you forget simmering problems, and that is when simmering problems go out of sight, out of mind, because they are behind a substratum. We don't look at them. Anything that's not bothering us right now tends to get ignored until it actually does begin to bother us as a nation. So that is the kind of murmuring that's coming up in Punjab right now and in Sikh politics. That's why it's concerning. Is it counterintuitive that we are talking about this? Maybe it's counterintuitive, but you know what? The essence of Cut the Clutter is that we take a deep breath. We don't rush with the news of the day. News of the day, you can watch your TV channels. Much wiser people debate it every evening. So you can spend hours watching that. On the other hand, what might sound counterintuitive, if you're just chasing the news of the day or headlines of the day, actually might turn out to be among the most significant things happening around us.